Welcome to the Codeplay Culture podcast, where we discuss tech, gaming, health, and the world around us.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Codeplay Culture podcast. Today we are joined by our guest Carl and co-host Rui. Rui, what's up?
Not much, man, not much. Just hanging out, enjoying this beautiful weather.
You got your Space Invaders video game shirt?
Yeah, man, of course.
It's Friday. What is that? Orange juice, Carl?
It's a kombucha.
Is that like really healthy?
It's supposed to be.
Oh,
What's
nice.
in that?
It's like a mushroom that's fermented with tea, a little bit of black tea, and I think they put a little bit of sugar in there.
Nice.
It's just like a fermented fungus.
Nice.
It's like a
Yeah.
type
So what
of
are you
mushroom.
drinking? I'm drinking old fungus that is it's I've let it age, and
This is new fungus.
new fungus.
It's the good stuff.
It's the good stuff. It used to be a dead body. Now it's fungus. Those things are incredible. I heard that they're going to just, the cordyceps are going to just grow right through us. And it's what The Last of Us is based on, eh? Cordyceps.
Yes.
The Last of Us.
Yeah. It's a show on, you've ever heard of The Last of Us, Carl?
No, okay, all right. No, I'll have to check it out because I'm very interested in cordyceps. They're one of the most interesting, I would say, life forms on the planet that I've seen in my travels. My travels watching nature shows.
Yeah. They're like
My travels from
super
the couch.
hyper aggressive. Yeah. Yeah. It travels from the sofa into the TV. Yeah. Like they grow right through you. And then that's it. Last of Us is like a post-apocalyptic take on zombies. But if the zombies weren't like, whatever disease, it was just all cordyceps, mushroom, fungus based. That's what drove them to that point. And once you get bit, then you have it, unless you're immune. But cool thing about The Last of Us, it's all based off a video game. And it's nice to see all this trend right now of incredible games. And Rui, you got the gaming shirt on, going to the big screen like Mario and Last of Us on. Where is Last of Us on? Disney?
I don't know.
No,
It's Netflix, right?
Netflix.
Or is it Prime?
Shoot, I can't remember. Oh, no, Megan has to cast it, I think. She has to cast it from Crave. Yeah.
Is it from Crave specifically?
Yeah.
I just
It's so
downloaded
weird.
it from some websites.
Some Pirate Bay. No, it is. Don't advocate for that, but yeah. So yeah, today we're talking about cloud computing. For those that don't know, it's, if you have a computer at home, what you want to do is go outside right away, lift it as high as you can. And that's essentially what we're talking about today is taking your computer at home and moving it into the cloud. And what does that mean, Carl? Like for the people checking out this stuff and they don't know, they're not in IT. What's cloud? What is that? What is that stuff?
Yeah, for anyone that's not familiar with the actual technology, and why are they calling it cloud? Basically, it just means that you're taking computing resources away from your desktop and away from your own servers, and you're using computing resources in somebody else's data center. Right. That's the key word. But they're generally cloud is there's generally services sold on subscription basis, so you don't own anything. And maybe an example for the average person at home is that I would say is Gmail a cloud computing thing? You're not running your own email server at home. You're using Google's email servers. So pretty much anyone that uses email, you're using cloud computing. Whether you're using it
know it or not,
through your telco,
unless you got an Exchange at home, then you're
some people do. I know some IT guys run their own Exchange or not Exchange, but their own email servers on Linux or whatnot. And if you're backing up to a cloud drive like Google Drive, or you're using Google Spreadsheets or Google Docs, any kind of backup to the cloud is cloud computing. So when you're using the cloud, you're using the cloud.
Yeah. So, and there is, I believe, a huge amount of companies still with like on-prem servers, right?
And
And
I think there
I don't know
still
the
will be.
percent,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's majority, right? Majority of the world is still on-prem. What do you think, Carl?
Some companies are going fully cloud, where they might keep one server on premise for maybe Active Directory, maybe for a file server. But there's a lot of companies that are, I would say, most of those companies that are fully cloud are software development companies.
Right.
Bigger enterprises, legacy companies, even small businesses that have been around, 5, 10 years. Most of those guys will still run one or more servers on premise. Again, because some workloads are just not a good fit for the cloud. The applications would need to be re-architected for custom apps. And then there's the latency issues, remote offices. They want to have file
Right.
servers that are local. Um, so there's a mixed bag, and especially when you get into the larger guys that run thousands of physical servers. There's there could be just again technical reasons to keep stuff on premise, but also if they're heavily invested and have already spent the money on physical infrastructure, they're not just going to scrap it today or tomorrow. It's going to take some time before they figure out and migrate, if they could and would migrate those thousands of servers to the cloud. So there's a mixed bag out there.
So if you're a company just starting out, whatever you do, do not buy a server. Start with the cloud. This is where we're all headed. Would you
Yeah,
would you guys agree?
yeah.
Um, I'm gonna have to play devil's advocate and not agree with that
Right.
statement. I'm gonna have to say that having your computer information, your data, taking it from your house, basically here's the breakdown of it, right? I have my personal important business information at home on my computer. Now I bring it to my neighbor's house and he charges me a fee for keeping it there. That's cloud computing. Is my data safe at my neighbor's house? For all I know, he's a data harvester or he sells data, right? I don't know what he's doing with my data. I don't feel safe, and I
Is your,
don't
is your
feel good
neighbor
paying for that.
is your neighbor named Mark or Bill?
How'd you know? It's Mark Bill.
Is it Mark
He's a
Mark
duck.
Gates or Bill Zuckerberg?
Yeah, it's one of those guys.
One of those guys, eh? Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of like my devil's advocate, opinion on that cloud
Encrypt your
computing. It's
data.
not really cloud computing.
If you encrypt
Just
your
at your
data,
neighbors.
if you encrypt your data in the cloud, then unless someone can break the encryption, you should be safe, more than safe. If
Right,
you
but
don't,
it is
yeah, go
possible,
ahead.
right, to break the encryption.
Well, is it? I mean,
I would. There's
256-bit
this.
encryption. Yeah, it's possible to break it, but the odds of breaking 256-bit encryption is like, I think it's like you would have to have computers hacking for something like 13
Hmm.
billion years to be able to
Yeah.
to have a
I mean,
guaranteed hack. But here's the thing: you could guess it the first time by accident in like a
right.
second, or
Mm,
if it takes the last guess out of whatever that big giant number is that you need
yeah.
to do.
Hmm.
That last guess would be 13 billion years or whatever. It's a huge number.
Yeah.
Right.
But how do you know it's going to take the last guess, the middle guess, or the first guess? You don't know, right? So you're
Right.
Right.
correct. You're correct. You can crack encryption and get lucky.
The
You
the
can. And
13 million or whatever years, like I heard that they got that really far down, super far down with quantum computing.
absolutely. I was going to bring
Like
that up. Yeah.
yeah, because now like I've never like seen the service in Azure, but they have like, the cloud quantum computing that you can do, and you buy like X qubits of work, and then you could, sick this amount of qubits on whatever, you know, unhashing thing you have to do. And I don't know that there's probably a calculator online, like if with using, let's say, a bunch of GPUs and SLI to like break like X amount of teraflops on some RTX 4090 like graphics cards on computers, like would be like the 13 million years or whatever for the 256 SHA or whatever. But then there's probably some calculator that'll say, hey, if you run that through, some kind of quantum whatever, what is how. But there's this whole like security thing where like everyone's like, oh shoot, like they're gonna just sick quantum on like no one is safe with quantum or something,
Right.
like but really to your point about like is it safe there? No. I mean,
No.
the thing is, that no one's deleting data. Like you delete a Facebook post, it's not gone. And I'm not talking about your grandma taking a photo of the post and then sending it to your
Mm-hmm.
mom. I'm talking about like, like they sell your data because nothing is ever deleted, right? But then
Right.
with the cloud, it's like, hey, if you have like, let's say there's scenarios, right? Well, if you want high reliability, do you want to be like hitting the web server on Rui's like computer, or do you want like the reliability of Microsoft? Because at the end of the day, who's more likely to get hacked, like Rui's computer at home or like Microsoft? And probably just
Right.
be like, oh no, I'd rather be on Microsoft because if they get
Well,
hacked,
right.
you know what I mean? But
Right.
when you're talking about data security and like, is it safe? No. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
also, I would also argue on your computer, it's not even safe. I
Mm-hmm.
was listening to a podcast. This product, Fiddler? It's made by Telerik. It's like a network sniffing, kind of like a Wireshark tool.
Right.
They were talking about how it's like, why do you need Wireshark? Like you just open up dev tools and see all the network stuff. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Fiddler will look at the network traffic on your computer, not necessarily in your browser. So let's say you're debugging an iOS app, like it'll
Mm-hmm.
show the network traffic for that. But when you first open up Fiddler, and you can download it, fiddler.telerik.com, whatever. I'm not sponsored by them. I love their products. Is when you open it for the first time, it shows all of these things from Microsoft phoning home about everything, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the same thing on Macs when you open it too. So I'd say there's a slight chance that, unless if you're running Linux, you also might want to open up like Fiddler to see what's going on. Like,
Right.
but yeah, I would say like if it's on a computer, it's probably not safe.
Mm-hmm.
If it's on paper, if you've taken a photo of the paper, it's not safe because now it's on a computer.
Exactly.
I think nothing's safe. Like, I think we just have to accept that like our neighbor is looking through the photos of our children or something really weird like that. Like, hey man, can you stop doing that? Because
Yeah.
I don't know. There's benefits to the cloud, but there's also the
Those
acceptance
drawbacks for
of,
sure.
yeah, big drawbacks. Your data
Yeah.
is no longer safe. It's no longer yours. It's no longer,
And you don't
I
know where
don't,
it's sitting either, right?
yeah, yeah.
At least
Regionality.
with a home server or on-premise server, you know where it's sitting, and then you can set up a series of booby traps to keep things even safer, right? You
Yeah.
have like moats and stuff around it, maybe like a little pits,
Yeah.
Vietnamese traps, all kinds of crazy stuff you can have just
Yeah. Like,
protecting that server. In addition to the 512 SHA, right?
yeah. Like spike pits, right? Like from
Yeah,
Pitfall.
like Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat, yeah, Pitfall.
You ever play,
You can, yeah.
you ever play that game, The Evil Within?
No,
If
is it
Carl,
good?
it's so good. There was this boss in this game, Evil Within. He was a butcher, right? It's like a horror video game. This guy's wearing like a bib, like a lobster bib. He's a butcher, right?
Culture.
And he's got a safe for a helmet, one of those safes that have the big crank for the nose, right? But it was weird because when you kill him, he would just reanimate, so you couldn't really kill him, right? It was like pretty scary. Like, hey man, it's like Jason. Like you thought you killed Jason, he's right back. That's Jason for you, right? But when you opened up the safe and opened it, there's nothing inside of it. It was just so horrific.
Empty.
It was empty. And it was almost like a metaphor for life, like, when women are looking at men, they're like, if I crack that code, I bet you I can really figure out what's going on. And then they open it, they're like,
Nothing
there's
inside.
nothing. It's just like, okay, I thought I had my investment would pan
Goodness.
out. But yeah, I don't know how to bring that back to cloud. But quite honestly,
Can you
but
play
So
the
yeah, I
video
don't
game
know.
in the
What do you
cloud?
think? Pardon?
Can you play that video game in the cloud?
yes. And oh my gosh. So it's so crazy now that they're trying to just say, okay, you know what? Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, maybe not Nintendo yet, but Xbox and PlayStation, you don't need discs. You don't even need digital. We're just like Netflix. You want to play that game? You just plop down $60 a month and all the games are unlocked. But now true gamers are like, oh dear Lord, we have latency issues like crazy. Like you're
Yeah.
trying to stream 4K. Like if you don't have like a tera gig up or like, sorry, 2 gigabit up, 2 gigabit down internet, like fiber directly into your computer, directly into your house. Like, and then I don't know, people aren't really, I'd say the hardcore gamers aren't there, but cloud computing and gaming is huge right now.
Mhm.
It's just people want to like just they have this new attachment for phones for both Xbox and PlayStation, where you just kind of put your phone in, right? And then it's got the controller thing on each side. I'm not talking about the ones that came out like years ago. These are like straight from kind of like official third parties for Microsoft and PlayStation. But when you're on there, it actually has a more direct connection to the cloud. Like they have
Mm.
some controllers, I believe, that have a direct connection to the cloud. It's kind of like cool to think about that. Like, cloud is kind of everywhere. They don't want to have this physical local at home.
Yeah.
And
So
then there's
so
this
I was just gonna say, who is it really benefiting, right? Is it
probably
benefiting us? I don't think so.
no. Well, I mean, the ease of access of getting in games, yes, but the if you want like the de facto quality standard, you won't go there. But dude, I was the first one. I have so many like 4K discs, right?
Hmm.
But then once Netflix, they were able to pump out 4K 60 or 120 hertz and still
Right.
had Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. I'm like,
Hmm.
how's this? But then I put in like a 4K disc. I can still tell the difference, but at a certain point, I'm like, I can't keep buying this like movie. But I'm not like a movie. Like there are hardcore like
Right.
you buy physical media, Rui, right? Like
For
and
games only. Yeah.
yeah, for games only. Me too. Like, Carl, are you like all digital at this point? Or are you all cloud at this point in terms of digital media or physical media?
Or
Well,
VHS.
I don't play games. I downloaded MAME about a year ago to play like Galaga and
Nice.
Pac-Man and Dig Dug, but that lasted about a month, and then I just kind of got busy with other stuff. As much as I'd like to get back on it, for my recording software, it's some of it's in the cloud. So like samplers that have wave files as digital samples, a lot of that stuff. What happens is you download it and it's all running natively on your laptop or desktop.
Hmm.
But you can pick and choose which components, like which amplifier simulators, like which guitar amp simulators, which plugins you want to use, and that will download it to your local machine.
Nice.
And I think they have like the issues there are more in terms of activation. Like if your internet's down for more than 30 days, then you might get locked out.
Oh
You
wow.
know, you know what I mean. So it checks to see Some of them check to see activation. Some of them are smart enough. Some of the plugin companies, so that once you're activated, you download it, and then they don't check if you're activated anymore.
Yeah, like
So
the
it
phone
depends on
code.
how smart they are with their activations.
Right.
Anything else I'm using and like that's not in the cloud really is like Visual Studio Code.
Hmm.
Yeah, my recording software, the actual recording software, they call it a DAW, digital audio workstation. That's not in the cloud. I'm using
Mm,
Reaper.
mm,
Um, yeah, but email and I'll mess around with Google Docs. I still use Excel locally and Word locally. I'm trying to get away
Same. Yeah.
from from using Google Docs, and for that
yeah,
same reason. You know, I don't want Google mining my data, and a lot of my data is not really super critical, but it gets to the point where it's like, well, I don't want, like, the less exposure you have, the less security footprint, regardless of whether you think it's data that matters or
Hmm.
not. The less you put out there, the less someone who can look at this and go, oh, look, this this data may not matter on its own, but if you connect this data with this data and this piece of information all related back to me or you, then they can
mm,
start making
That's
a
right.
profile and making it easier to do whatever kind of hacks, whether it's a social hack or an actual technology hack into your accounts, your systems. So I'm
Hmm.
trying to be a little bit smarter there. I was looking, since blockchain's in the cloud, we're talking cloud. I did a little bit of chat GPTing, and I was curious, like how hard would it be to hack into the like basically guess the same seed phrase on a Bitcoin wallet or any crypto wallet, so that
Hmm.
I could. So when you get a wallet from scratch, it creates a seed phrase, and that is what generates your private key, and it's
Right.
associated with your private key. So there's nothing stopping any wallet from creating a seed phrase that's the same one somebody else has. So if by accident
Mm.
a wallet just randomly creates the same seed phrase for a new user as an existing user that has potentially millions of dollars in their Bitcoin sort of associated to that Bitcoin seed phrase, then the new
Hmm.
user by default can technically steal all that other person's money or has
Mm.
access to it or crypto.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, the odds of that happening are, I think, something like 1 in 13 billion or whatever it is. It's a huge number, but um,
Right.
I kept going back to, and Chat GPT said it's such a small number, it's essentially zero. But I kept going back, and I'm
Mm.
like, but what's to say that you couldn't guess that number the very first time
Mm.
just by
Hmm.
accident? There's nothing that says that won't happen. So then
Yeah, like
Chat
probability.
GPT said, well, diversify, don't keep all your crypto in one wallet. And then I started
Mm.
thinking, well, if
Yeah.
you have, 5 wallets and one gets hacked, whether it's just because of what I was talking about, or you actually, it's a legitimate hack where you posted your phrase by mistake. But if you had 5 wallets, one gets hacked and you spread it equally, you could lose 20% of your crypto. That's still a
Hmm.
high
Right.
number, right? You want to
Yeah.
you want to kind of get that number down. So talking about security in the cloud is, yeah, it's who knows, right? Like, do we really know how secure this stuff is? Knowing that you could guess
Mm.
it like that. I mean, I could
Yeah, like
literally, if I had, um, like anyone could literally guess a password the first time, just dumb luck,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, I've looked at some clients databases when they're onboarding to like build some software, and when you open up the user table and the passwords are stored in plain text, I'm like, oh dear lord, right? And then when some of the passwords are a blank, like a space bar, and that was a valid password. So, and then it's just like, oh dear lord. But think about like that variability to what you're talking about, Carl, right? Like you're super at the tail end of the spectrum of making things secure. There's, like we were talking about before, like I think it was ASP, not ASPX, but like not ASP.NET, but like classic active server pages or
Yeah,
whatever, or before that, there was like literally like select statements in HTML, right? Like you could open up DevTools and see a select statement from a database, right in there. I'm not sure
Hmm.
what it was, but like that used to be like pretty okay, and then like then stuff hit the fan, right? And then everyone's like separating stuff and like, but yeah, like you got to imagine like we're pretty technologically advanced. We do have a bias for doing things correctly and being safe, and
Yeah.
but granted, probably in the crypto world, you probably you know you're not at the tail end and you're not in the tail start. You're somewhere in the middle because you kind of have to be technologically advanced in general to be dealing with that stuff at any meaningful, high capacity, optimal level, right?
Hmm.
Like you are, Carl. Like so, yeah,
yeah. I'm
it's
very
crazy.
careful with my passwords too. I follow all the best practices of long passwords with mixed uppercase, lowercase, and funky characters. Then I change them on a regular basis. And I don't use password managers because when I looked into them, I thought, well, all someone has to do is hack into one password and they have everything.
Yeah,
If I manage all
yeah,
my own passwords, as much of it is a pain in the ass separately, then
mhm.
if they just
Yeah.
hack into one account, then
That is
I
true.
use different passwords, then
Mhm.
you know. And there was a hack in one of these password
LastPass.
managers. Yeah, was it LastPass?
Was
Maybe
it
Mm.
LastPass? Can't
Yeah,
believe, man. That's
I should.
yeah,
crazy.
I don't
and
know,
they've
but
had
it
like
was.
three different CEOs over the
Yeah,
past year or two.
I don't know if they were able to access people's actually log in, but there was like personal information. I think emails or something was
Right.
revealed.
And that's the cloud computing in a nutshell, right? That stuff,
Yeah,
passwords should be kept in cold storage,
Yeah.
on a Word document.
You guys ever seen that like cloud backup like commercial from GitHub? It was like a viral commercial where they took
mm,
all of the GitHub repositories onto like a cold pressed SSD, and they brought it to like the pit. They dug a pit in Antarctic and they put it in a safe in a vault down there. It was like this viral thing. We've backed up GitHub. We're keeping it on ice in Antarctica forever. It was actually like, it was digitally burnt into like a piece of glass or something.
Oh, wasn't that a couple years ago?
Yeah, that was like, I don't like, that it sounds just too outrageous to be true, but it might have
Yeah.
been true. But that's just some messed up stuff. But like, yeah, like if you put all of your eggs in one basket, like passwords, and then you say, okay, the cloud can manage that, then yeah, like if someone can guess that for
BlendJet, the portable blender that allows you to make delicious and healthy smoothies on the go. With its powerful motor and compact design, you can blend your favorite fruits and veggies anytime, anywhere. Say goodbye to unhealthy fast food and hello to a healthier lifestyle with BlendJet. For 12% off a BlendJet 2, use coupon code CODEPLAY12.
is like if you have all of your eggs in one basket for, LastPass or one pass, and then if you have like a super simple password like 1234, like, and if you have auto login, you can imagine if you leave your computer unlocked too, if people come by, sit at your computer, hit your banking, make some transfers, because it all auto logs in, right?
Yeah.
Those browser extensions are the gift and the curse. But if you have a very, serious good password at that front gate, then yeah, there's a lot of, I bet you like the cyber criminals probably pretty heavily have like a lot of their, or a portion of their resources targeted at those password manager companies.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be like the unicorns or the pot of gold,
Mother
right?
load. Yeah.
The mother load if they can get those. So cloud in general, like, I mean, some of it's good, some of it's bad. I mean, you got to know what you're doing, kind of like Bitcoin. Like, I'll just take a second to tell you how much I love Azure static web apps. I'm like I love these things. Like, they're free. Like, if you have any website you want to host, you can host it forever for free. You don't need to pay anything. You just have your HTML, you plop it there like a CDN, and they give you free SSL that automatically renews for life. And you can do custom domains for free. And if you ever get like super busy where you're like, oh man, this thing's really taken off, or you can one click check off, you can say, put it on the edge. And what that'll do is like on Microsoft's like globally distributed, data centers, wherever you're closest to, it'll hit that, right? So if you're in Germany, it'll give you the latency to the closest Germany or the German, Microsoft colo, right? For Azure.
Mm-hmm.
And
So will
those
that
are
allow you
awesome.
to run React apps too? Because that's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
JavaScript and HTML.
All SPA frameworks, right? So
Nice.
we host like all the Blazor stuff there for the front end. There's zero cost for the front end for Blazor, React, Angular, Vue, PHP. I think like they have a whole list of like, because PHP you don't need a server, right? Rui,
Yeah, you do. Of course.
you do?
Yeah.
Because it's server side, right? The PHP part.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So maybe not PHP, but what was I thinking of? Is Perl? Or I can't remember. But anyhow, any client side stuff that you want to plop, you can. It's just incredible. And the fact that you can just set up your tenant and post anything there. I just want to see. I'm just going on their thing for Azure Static Web Apps, and they have a so on the page for static web apps, they have React, Vue, Angular, and .NET. When they say .NET, they pretty much mean Blazor. But now through the power of WebAssembly, you can now run .NET code directly natively in the browser without Blazor, which means that you could potentially have, I don't know, a game written in .NET or something that has no HTML, that's just rendered with WebAssembly. That's static. So
Nice.
Rust, like all these server-side languages, you can compile them down to WebAssembly and they'll run on static web apps, meaning that PHP probably don't want to do that because now all your server-side, like, secrets. Everyone
Right.
thinks like server is like a safe, right? You can't if you can't get to the server, we're good, right? There was a good tech demo by the father of Knockout JS and Blazor. I'm forgetting his name, and I'm gonna like hate myself later. But he made Blazor, Knockout JS, and all that stuff. He made ASP.NET or like MVC, like which is typically JavaScript going to a server. He
Mm-hmm.
made that all within the client. He took the whole server, the whole actual .NET Core server, and
Mm-hmm.
ran it client side. So when you would do like a post or like a, the URL is like gaming/ID2, and it would route, it would actually
Mm-hmm.
route back to itself internally. So you see all the server side code right there in the client. And he starts the demonstration by saying, this is what's possible, but never do this. Right. But he just wanted to show that you could run any server side technology right there in the client.
Yeah.
So, remember we were looking at WebAssembly in the cloud for gaming, and people
Yeah.
write Unity, and then they
Right.
use it's a special tool you run the stuff to convert it to WebAssembly.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that you could run a game, you could build a game in Unity,
Yeah.
and then you could host it for free on Azure Static Web Apps. When you log in, you're playing a game because it uses client-side GPU, right? It
Right.
uses the
Right.
GPU of your computer. So now you can host games for free, like anywhere, and have them globally distributed.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's
just,
pretty nice. Yeah.
it's incredible. On the server side, there's not that much. Like, obviously you want to do Docker containers and some stuff, or Azure Static Web Apps or AWS Lambdas, and, try to move away from VMs, right, Carl? Because in
Mm-hmm.
cloud computing, what's the first thing that the companies do that have a big data center? They're like, we'll take our VMs and we'll put them in the cloud. It's like, that's not exactly cloud computing, right? Like, that's maybe a baby step, but what you want to get to is stuff like serverless, right? Where you're actually not remoting into a server in the cloud and doing Windows updates. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you want the cloud to manage that for you. And that's really the difference. I say that is cloud for me. The fact that I can no longer remote into it, update it, all that stuff. It's now a service, meaning like I can do some settings. Maybe I can get to a terminal, but the real benefit of cloud is not managing that infrastructure, both from like an update, license, a like rebooting, all that stuff. It's just
Security
like,
and stuff.
yeah, like, oh, did you get hacked, or did Microsoft get hacked, or did you forget to do that Windows update and it's your
Mm-hmm.
fault, right? So PaaS was a platform as a service is really the way to go. But yeah, cloud computing, I would say that like if companies are not on it, if they want to move to it, it's, the benefit is tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have
I,
to agree to an extent, but yeah.
just thinking in terms of, you're right, like serverless computing, and when you have custom apps running in the cloud, that is, you're really taking advantage of the pretty much everything the cloud can offer. But a lot of corporate companies that don't write their own software, they're just using, off the shelf Microsoft servers and SQL, whatever, right? Like those kind of guys, there's they're still running VMs in the cloud. That's all they have,
Yeah.
and unless it's also um, using, like, if you look at like switches like Meraki, where there's the management console is now in the cloud.
Mm.
CRMs are in the cloud. Like a lot of people are using Salesforce or Dynamics, and I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of companies and even IT departments don't necessarily look at. I'm sure they do now, but maybe in a lot of smaller companies, or maybe 5-10 years ago, they weren't really looking at stuff like Salesforce as being a cloud app, because the IT guys are still focused on their own infrastructure, their on-premise servers. But cloud is, for a lot of companies, they're either using something like Salesforce or Dynamics in the cloud, or they're using management servers, a lot of antivirus, endpoint protection, the management servers running in the cloud. So that's taking away the need to have a server. Yet, for your other servers that are like physical servers or virtual machines on premise, you're still running VMs in Azure or AWS. So cloud is like, it's such a small word for what can be so many different
Right.
variations. And uh, you know I keep
Oh,
thinking of blockchain because it's kind of still fresh in my head. It's the same thing with crypto and blockchain. It's the same thing
I
with
was just gonna
the
say,
word virtualization. That those words got, you know, just twisted and turned until everything became virtualized.
yep.
mhm.
Even though they weren't virtualized. They were saying people were using the word virtualization or like AI, like everything's AI. Like
Yep.
anything you write, technically any algorithm you write in code is artificial intelligence. Like if you write
Yeah.
a something that takes two people's ages and adds them together and averages them, technically you could say that's artificial intelligence.
Yeah. And like in gaming and stuff, like they were writing AI with two characters, NPCs interacting with each other for years, right? But there wasn't this like allure of AI,
Yeah.
right? Now that ChatGPT is like,
A
you know,
hype.
proven all that stuff. But can I tell you something? Like I've definitely been, and a lot of the YouTubers that are in the coding space are except Fireship, but like a lot of the other ones are like, no, it's just going to be a tool that'll complement. It's not like the tech industry like took a little dump for the resources because of AI and other reasons, but it'll come back. It'll come back soaring like crazy, for sure. A buddy and I were coding last night, and we were stuck in a problem for like 2 hours, right? And when we finally got it, we both looked at each other like, dude, there is no way AI would have been able to do any of this, what we just did, what we just went through. And we both realized, like, not realized, but it solidified, like, to us. They're like, this, it's just going to be a tool to quickly look up things and all that stuff, maybe automate a lot of what we're doing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Like, but man, like, it does not break that human level of problem solving.
Right.
Let's get together and let's build, right?
If you're looking for a unique, high quality puzzle experience, then Wongo Puzzles is for you. Their puzzles are handcrafted and made of premium quality wood, ensuring a long lasting and enjoyable puzzle solving experience. Why settle for mass produced plastic puzzles when you can have a one of a kind handmade Wongo puzzle? For 10% off Wongo Puzzles, use the coupon code CODEPLAY.
Um,
Well,
but
maybe
man,
not
like,
today. I was using
yeah,
ChatGPT quite a bit over the past 2 weeks, and especially with code, it throws out a lot of variables that are not defined, like all kinds of problems that it can't detect until you actually go back and say, "Hey, can you double check this code?" Or usually I
Mhm.
detect it, so I pinpoint. I'm like, I don't see this variable or whatever defined,
yeah.
and then I'll go, "Oh yeah, I apologize." But then, and I understand
Yeah,
that.
it's like it's the rug sweeping. Oh, sorry about that. What I meant to say was like, no, listen, I pointed it out to you. Give credit where credit is due, Mister Chat GPT.
I've never asked it to just to kind of blankly, hey, can you check this code for validity, like the code that it put
Yeah,
out? I always go back and say, hey, this looks wrong. Now, when I put
Yeah.
code out to it and say check it, like my own code, it will actually point stuff out, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's my own silliness. But so I understand that, and I'm still. My next thing is next time I spot an error, I'm going to see if it can find the error without me pointing the error out. Um,
Right.
but here's one thing that just stood out as like
mhm,
I was again that blockchain encryption was probabilities. So if you take like 1 in 100 and you multiply that 4 times, so 1 in 100 times 1 in 100 times 1 in 100 times 1 in 100 is one, and I think it's like 100, whatever the number was. Chat GPT had one less zero, and I'm like, hang on a sec. So I'm like doing the math. I'm looking at zeros because one out of 100 times one out of 100 is 10,000. And then you add two more zeros, and then another two, and it left a zero off. And then I pointed it out. It's like, oh yeah, I apologize. I'm like, hang on, this isn't coding. This is relatively like basic math.
Mhm.
right, right,
So I
right.
got that
It's like
It,
wrong.
is, it's lacking some nuances, especially when it comes to coding. There's some nuances that it
Mhm.
just can't
Yeah,
figure out.
I think it got confused because it looks back in the history of the chat, and it had a lot of other questions and calculations of like
Mhm.
odds of 1 in 100 or whatever, like. And so I think that may have thrown it off.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
context.
But you have to
Yeah,
be
like
very
I.
careful.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
why it's important with ChatGPT, uh, especially to like keep the conversations very limited to their purpose on the left hand side. Like obviously delete
Yeah.
conversations that are like a onesie twosie. I'll never ask this ever again, like whatever. But it with Chat GPT 4, I believe, or the fifth one coming, they're adding more like like characters it can remember from a previous, like, because what they're showing is like if you hit a new 4 session and you just type and type and type, at a certain point, like whether it's 10,000 words, whatever, it'll forget what it's gone, right? It's completely out of its memory in that conversation. So they're trying to expand that to be even more.
Mhm.
It just completely loses, like it forgets who you are, what we've discussed before. It's like
Yeah.
it's like the Alzheimer's scenario where you
I
have to
feel
explain.
like anything you try to correct it on, it will take your correction at face value and apologize for whatever it is.
Yeah.
So there could be some, chat, DT, chat degradation team whose just sole purpose is to degrade that whole system, just feed it terrible information. Say sky is actually purple.
Oh,
No, the
yeah.
sky is purple. So just, I
Yeah.
mean, that's possible, but I think it will take your correction at face value and not try
Yes,
to
I've
correct
noticed that.
you.
I've noticed that too. It's like, oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. It's almost like it's like agreeable to its own fault, right?
Hmm.
And like it's because at the end of the day, it has to be liked, right? Like if it told you, like if it was one of
Yeah.
those like annoying know-it-all friends, and it was like,
Right.
"Hey,
You
dude,
wouldn't play
that
with it.
sucks. Like, why would you ever do that?
Yeah.
Like, this is what you got to write. You suck." And then it
Why
gives you the
won't you
right
play
code.
with me?
Yeah, and then like, play with me. It's like, play with me or I'll break your arm, like from a Miyazaki movie, The Big
Yeah.
Baby.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's like I feel like it's just going to be an awesome tool
Yeah.
for devs. But anyhow, we're right at time now. I would say closing it out, Carl. If you're a company that's on the fence about moving to the cloud, and I'll ask you too, Rui, like what would you do to help persuade or dissuade that company for moving to the cloud in like elevator pitch level, couple sentences?
Well, I'll let Carl have the last word, so I'll just say
Sure.
something quick because I'm not a big cloud computing guy, but anytime you're on the fence, you pick a side because if you fall off the fence, it's a long fall. That's my opinion on that. That's all I have to
All
say
right.
about the
So
cloud part,
the metaphor, right? So
metaphorically
keep them
speaking.
undecided, right? Keep them
Yes.
guessing. All right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Carl, what about you?
I think you need to look at the budgeting and the amount of time and effort it takes to migrate over, and also the time and effort and costs that you'll save once you are migrated over. And then you can
Mm,
decide what workloads and what resources to put in the cloud and which that you want to keep on premise, and also decide when you want to put them in the cloud, and have that strategy in place. It you know it's it really depends on how much on the size of the organization, and so there's really no one size fits all. It's it can be a very simple thing to do, or it can be like a long drawn out and quite intensive in terms of time and money. If you For any company that wants to get in the cloud because they see the value of it in terms of saving time, increasing productivity for their IT and tech team, um, becoming more modernized, increasing productivity for the actual end users in the company, the line of business people, saving money, and but you don't have the resources to do it, you don't have the skill sets, definitely don't try and learn it all yourself. Bring on experts that have been trained and that do it pretty much every day and have certifications. I've seen a lot of companies try and do certain things themselves, whether it's cloud or not, and if if you take on too much or you underestimate what you're taking on, things can go sideways pretty quickly, and then the costs can be unnecessary astronomical costs.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's great advice. So very pragmatic, plan it out. Get the help that you need. Don't try to take it all on. And don't bite off more than you can chew. Start small, right, like you're saying, but at the same point, don't jump in without being pragmatic enough to do some of that work at first, because even starting small, you could end up in a financial pit because of poor planning. So it's like
Yeah.
a bunch of good planning and then start small, right?
Do it in phases.
Great
Yes.
advice.
Start with
Yeah.
one virtual machine, back up one server. Start really small, get your feet wet, and put a plan together. And once you make a few small maneuvers into whether it's Azure or AWS or whatever cloud you're going into, then you get that familiarity, you get the workflow in place, you work out the bugs, and then instead of just doing one VM or two VMs, you can go out and throw like 10, 20,
Yeah.
50 or 100 VMs out and scale it out.
Yeah. So like kind of have your mistakes in a smaller silo
Yeah.
and then correct them. And then when you move to a bigger implementation, you've already kind of learned, right?
Yeah, and
And
I
then,
said VM if you have a custom app like you're big on development using Lambda functions. Start with one small microservice in your application, or start with a test application. Just test
right.
it out, get it going. Don't don't get your head wrapped into something. I see that a lot, and then
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's fun, right? It's fun, but um, just wrapping up from my side with all that we were talking before we started recording, anyone that's in IT, whether you're selling it or buying it or using it, um, budgeting for it, administering it, it never, the innovation and the amount of learning never ends. And so I just remember, again, going back to blockchain, Charles Hoskinson, I watch his videos now and again. He does Ask Me Anything videos, AMAs on YouTube, live streaming. Most of them, I think, are live streamed. And he basically says, "Look, we don't stop. We celebrate, but we don't over celebrate because we know tomorrow the work never stops, and especially in an
Mhm.
industry like the blockchain and crypto that is highly competitive. There's a lot of people coming at them from different sides, and I think that's the case with a lot of companies, like even the Googles of the world. Googles now have to deal with the Chat GPTs of the world. So
Mhm.
it's we're living in a hyper competitive business environment, and there's a lot of information coming at us. And Chat GPT is still very very early, and that's all I'm gonna say. Otherwise, I'll never stop talking.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, definitely worth doing more diving into cloud. I'll leave it at one thing and head on out like a baby, or leave like a tree, or shake
Mhm.
like a stick. Is one of the things I like is as soon as you port your SQL Server to Azure SQL, it does automatic backup. It sets all that stuff for you. It's encrypted by default at rest and in transit. Does all of that for you. All right, so if you're a DBA and you want to, automate some of that stuff, it's great. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Rui. Thanks Carl. We'll see you next time on the Codeplay Culture podcast.
All right, take care, guys. Thanks.
Goodbye.